Now, today on my show, The Joy Temple, my guest is Vanessa Coultis. I'm expecting her in the studio shortly, and she's coming in to talk to us about how we can improve our lives without the need to solve our problems. And I think we often get caught up with this belief that we'll be happy when we get the job, the house, the car, we'll be happy when. But what happens is we get these things in our life, but we're still not happy. And she is going to be here with us to talk about ways that we can, move forward in life, even when we still have these problems around us. Good morning, Vanessa.
Good morning, Jan.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me back.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's nice to have someone come back again, because I guess it gives our listeners a chance to, build a relationship with you and to be able to have a consistent way of sharing messages, from your point of view as a life coach or a parenting coach. So it's really cool that you're here today. And we've got, we were talking this week about the topic that we are chatting about today, and we were both like, how do we articulate this? How do we explain it? And on your socials this week, you said, our session is about how we can improve our lives without the need to solve our problems. It's like a magic formula.
We all would like a magic formula. Yeah. That's the aim, I think, is to kind of find the shortcut. Because it was interesting, somebody this week, I'd put on a comment that, we want to kind of not have stress. And they were like, well, that's not easy. And I think the point is it isn't necessarily easy. And if you haven't got the strategies, of course it's not easy because you don't know what you're trying to do. So I think the point of the topic this week, if you like, is the strategy is not to solve all our problems, like I'll be happy when. And I've said that, I've done a talk on happiness, and I said that's not it. Don't say I'll be happy when, because then you've got to solve all your problems in order to be happy. And let's just face it, problems just keep appearing. There's a never-ending list of problems. So that's definitely not the strategy. So we need to be happy regardless of our problems.
Yeah. Yep, that's so true. It's like the waves in the ocean, right? They'll just keep coming, and they'll come at different tidal, forces, different heights, different directions. So problems are, just like that. I think if we think about it that way. But it's that concept of I'll be happy when, it's a very real thing for people, isn't it?
Well, we believe it. That's the next problem is we believe ourselves. Yeah. Actually, we believe ourselves way too often. I've got a new course I've put out for overthinkers, and that's what trips them up. They have a thought, they believe the thought, and then they go down the rabbit hole of the thought. But who says that thought's true? So who says you'll be happy when? You decided that. And so now you've got to solve all those problems so that you can be happy.
Is it a Hollywood myth? Is Hollywood myth? Is it, where does that belief come from? Does it come from the movies? Does it come from, I don't know where that belief comes from, but it's certainly one that, I read this book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, which is 100 different ways that you can just live a more peaceful, easy life without all, having to focus on your problems. And one of those things is, forget that notion of I'll be happy when, because that doesn't actually resolve what those deeper issues might be that you are feeling. Or...
Is it a bit like tomorrow never comes? Because I'll be happy when. it never happens. Because what happens is you think, well, I'll be happy when, and you list or name the problem that you need to overcome. But before you've sorted that, or by the time you've sorted that, there's another problem. So then you postpone it again. I'll be happy when. Oh, just one more thing. Yeah. You're never going to get there.
Do you find that you had that belief for yourself that you'd be happy when?
Of course, we all fall in. I think it's the nature of our world, isn't it? And it's the nature of therapy or counselling or whatever. Is even with life coaching, people come and they say, well, if only I could sort this out, then I'll be happy. But it was same with my parenting hat on. If they say, if only I could sort my kids' behaviour, then I'll be happy. It must be ingrained in us. And it's tripping us up. We need to ditch that approach.
Yeah.
We need to say, I can be happy regardless of my problems.
Yeah. And that is, I think that's a really tough thing for people to get their head around, because I think we have this belief in life that we're here to suffer. I think that's really what some people believe. I believe we're here to live a life of happiness and freedom and experiences, but others feel like life is just a constant suffering. And I think we need to find ways to change that mindset and focus on what is good in our life, not what is bad.
Wouldn't it be great if we could change our mindset? I mean, I've put out this new course, and it starts off, it's very simple. It's start every day with a positive thought.
Mm-hmm. Hear that, people? Start every day with a positive thought.
But I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because our brain, it's like a Google search, and it's also very obedient. And if you tell it something, it'll go, oh, you want negative things? Right, I'll go and find you negative things. So if we start with positive, it'll go off and it'll find positive things. And you just have a better day. But it's not easy. It takes a lot of changing in your mindset to start the day with a positive thought. And that, again, it's evolutionary. We're looking for danger because we need to make sure we're safe. It's all about staying safe.
Even after being in our beautiful cozy bed at night, we're waking up, we're thinking about danger.
Yeah, we're thinking, right, what's life going to throw at us today?
Yeah. I have a big sign on my wall that says, today's going to be a great day. It's a big yellow poster, and it's like literally the first thing I see when I wake up. And even before I wake up, I'm already starting to cultivate that intention for the day, like feeling some sense of gratitude, feeling some sense of today is going to be a great day before I even, put my feet on the floor. And that concept of having a positive thought before you get out of bed and trying to bring that into the actual reality can be very hard. So how do you think we should start to do that, to remember to do
Oh, that's the thing. It's like a habit, and, habits take quite a while to change. So you can't beat yourself up if you wake up and you think of a negative thought. You've just got to go, oops, and then think, right, what's my positive thought? And you can have a little list of things, because at first you're not going to automatically think of a positive thing when you wake up. So the first thing is awareness, to be aware of it. If you don't know that this is a really good idea, you're not going to do it. And then you've got to check out what your thoughts are. What is your first thought of the day? I mean, how many people out there remember what the first thing they thought of this morning was? So it has to be a conscious change to start with, to then become a habit.
And there's that little time, when you first kind of wake up, you're almost in that, what they call that alpha state, where you're not quite awake, not quite asleep. And that's the time when your brain is taking in those changing moments. So that's a really good thing to become aware of, that little time just when you wake up, and use that to be thinking about your awareness there. I'm really excited about this topic, because I am somebody who lived in a constant state of chaos. I felt like my life was chaotic, and I felt that happiness was eluding me. And I'm sure I'm probably speaking on behalf of a lot of people. But once I was able to really get the tools and the understanding that I could still be happy with everything else going on, it just made such a difference to life. And I hope today we can.
Well, I think it takes some pressure off. The pressure of thinking you've got to solve all these problems in order to be happy is immense. It's so stressful, thinking you've got to solve everything before you can be happy. One is a much better thought that you can be happy regardless of having problems. I mean, do you think people out there who are happy don't have any problems? No, it's just the way they handle it, or the approach.
Yeah. And Vanessa's here to talk to us about how we can do just that, how we can, I guess, put our problems, not on the back burner, Vanessa, but put our problems in a place where they're not impacting on our day-to-day joy and happiness in life. Is that what we?
Yeah. So my happiness talk is about having a happiness basket and a not so happy basket. and to live in your happiness basket. We don't ignore the problems, because that's really not going to sit well. That's really not going to sit well with us either, but don't focus on them. So I liken it to having two baskets. And when you have a problem, I'm not saying ignore it, just pop it away in the not so happy basket and focus on your happy things, on your good things. So if we only focus on the negative things, they just become our life. And then, of course, we're not happy. So yes, you're not saying you haven't got those things, just don't focus on them all the time.
So how do we, for me, I think sometimes you have to acknowledge that there's stuff you just have to let go of and just go, well, you know what, I can't change this or influence this or do anything about this right now, so I'm going to let it go. So I'm trying to articulate here to you, how do we decide what is an actual real problem versus what is just a habit, perhaps, that has become this constant feeling like it's a problem, but maybe it's not a problem that requires a lot of our focus and attention.
Well, it's interesting you just said about control, because we need to be aware of what we can control and what we can't control. So that's really, really important. We think we can control other things, like other people. We can't control other people. And that's just going to tie us up in knots trying to control someone else. So one thing that you just validly said was, think about what you can control. Very, very important. So what was your question just?
Well, it's about what is a problem? How do we define what is an actual problem or what is just a habit in our life that we're thinking is a problem? Because a big problem for me might be, not that this is a problem now, but a problem might be that I've been made redundant. Okay, that's a big problem. But a problem that somebody else might see is, I hate my job. That's a problem. Yeah. So how do we decide what, every day you go to work, you're hating your job? That's a problem. Okay.
Well, that's something you could focus on, or you could turn it around and focus on what you do like and what is good in your life. Because if you focus on what you don't want, you're going down that rabbit hole. So what we want to do is we want to focus on what we do want. And this is a really interesting thing. When I say to people when I'm coaching them, they come, they download, they tell me how bad their job is or the fact they haven't got a job. And I say, well, what do you want?
Yeah.
And then they'll tell me everything they don't want. And I say, okay, but what do you want? And after a couple of rounds of what they don't want, and I say, what do you want? And they normally pause at that point. And that's the point you want to get to. So what you want to get to. So what do you want? What is it? The loss of job, what is that anyway? What do you want? I mean, a job is what? It's for money. It's for identity. Focus on what you do want.
Yeah. So if we're going to our job every day and we're hating our job, we can control how we react during the day, right?
Yep.
If we go to our job one day and we're made redundant, we can't actually, we lose control over that situation. So I think being able to acknowledge and identify that what we think is a really big issue or problem may not be as bad as you think it is, and therefore should you be giving it as much attention in your day-to-day as you may be giving it. And I know this is a really big topic to kind of get our head around, at 9:48 on a Saturday morning. But it's a really important topic because for me, being able to be happy when other stuff is going along, out of control or happening in life, it's such an important thing. And it has become a good habit for me to know that if something's going wrong, I can still be happy. And it's taken a while to acknowledge and understand that. So is that what we're looking to help people with today? Something's going wrong and we can still
be happy. That's right. And do you know, it's amazing what happens when even these big things like people losing their job, it becomes a pivotal moment in their life, and their life then changes direction and it becomes a blessing. But at the time, all you see is, I haven't got a job, I haven't got any money. Yeah. And you can focus on that. You can focus on that because that's very real.
Yeah.
You know, there's certain things in life that we have these core needs, these really base needs. We need a roof over our head. Before we can sort of get into the realm of happiness, we need to make sure we've got the basics, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But once we have those, then it's where do we put our focus after that? What are our needs? And we do get caught up in what actually is the need. So a job, for example, is more than just the money that you earn. It's about a belonging, a connection, identity. It serves a lot of purposes that we don't realize.
Yeah.
And some of those can be met elsewhere. So for those people who do have a job and they don't like their job, what is it you don't like? Well, maybe you haven't got that connection. You don't get on with the people. Okay, well, that's quite important to us. But we could go and find connection in other ways and other places, So that's why I say focus on what you do want, and then you can work out how to get it.
Yeah. And I know, like for me, I've had 2 instances where work has been upended. You know, one was when I was made redundant. The other one was when I was, you know, I had that horrible illness a couple of years ago where I had to have surgery and wasn't able to work. They were problems, right? For me, they were very real problems, but I still was able to go, this is happening, but I'm not going to let it take away from my overall joy and satisfaction with all the other great things that I do have in my life. So,
well, here's another important thing. Nobody likes conflict. You know, when you have an argument with someone, it's not comfortable. But you know what the worst conflict is? The conflict within yourself.
Yeah.
And this is what's happening for all of us all the time. Now, when you have an argument with someone else, if you can move away from them. But when you're having an argument with yourself, you can't walk away. And we have the conflict within us. And the conflict quite often is wishing that the situation we're in wasn't happening. So the first thing to do, and this isn't easy, is to accept that this is real.
Yeah.
But check out which bits are real. So like when you separate from, say you have a relationship breakdown and you separate, and what you do is the fact that you've separated, that's a fact, that's real. Then you start making things up. It's because I'm not good enough. It's because nobody loves me. Now that stuff's not real. So stick to the facts and accept the facts and then move forwards. Because what we're trying to do is we're wishing it's not so. So we're fighting with ourselves and trying to make it not true.
Yeah. And how do we stop ourselves from that feeling? Because it's very easy to get caught in that. You know, we talked the other day about the loop. You get caught in that loop that then just becomes like a bit of a snowball, I guess, where you are, you know, becoming hard on yourself.
Oh, yes, we're very hard on ourselves.
Yeah, and not being kind and gentle and soft to ourselves. So how do we stop ourselves when we find, like, it's one thing to say, oh, yeah, just stop your thoughts, but it actually has to require an awareness.
Yes.
To be able to do that.
And that's why I actually started a new course, 90 days online course, because you can't do it overnight. And it was exactly for that reason, people who are overthinking or getting caught up in their thoughts. And some strategies we can use. One is distraction. But like you said, it starts with awareness. So you're aware that you're thinking these thoughts that are very unhelpful to you. There's nothing wrong with thoughts if they're helpful. It's the unhelpful ones.
Yeah.
The ones that take you in the wrong direction. So your first thing is awareness. And then you need some strategies. Okay, now I'm aware that I've got all these thoughts. Now what will I do? So one is distraction. And the best thing is to kind of have a little list of all the things you can do that distract you. So I have one client and he said music was very good. It was distracting him and he found it a very good distraction. But then his mind managed to carry on thinking regardless of the music. So that one's not working anymore. So he's got to come up with new distractions. So that's one strategy. Another strategy is, again, once you're aware that those thoughts are doing it, I think maybe park thoughts. Like, don't try and shut them down because they're a part of you. They want to be heard. They think they're trying to keep you safe, the thoughts. So put them in your unhappy basket as well. But make a note, like log it, go, yeah, that was a thought, but don't follow it down the rabbit hole, because then you're going to find all these other negative thoughts come to you.
And do you think it's worthwhile having like carrying a little notebook and, taking those thoughts out of your head and putting them on the paper? Like I think different strategies work for different people. Do you think that's a helpful thing?
Well, I think you've said it there. Different strategies work for different people. Find out what works for you, but it's understanding what you're trying to do. So the main aim is, yes, we don't want these negative thoughts or these thoughts that take us down, a negative route. So one option, yes, write it down, or have a little list of your distractions. You come up with a strategy that works for you, but knowing what options you've got.
Yeah.
So distractions, changing them to a positive thought. But we don't want to create fighting within ourselves.
Yeah.
So don't just try and tell yourself, oh, you should be happy.
I'll be right, mate.
Yeah. That's really not going to help you.
Yeah, it is. And I think I'll be happy. You're thinking about that affirmation kind of stuff. I'll be happy. But there has to be this part deeper down inside you that you connect with, that is that turning point. That's what I felt for me. I was on the surface going, yep, I'll be happy. And forget about this, don't worry about this. But then what happened was I had to connect deeper within myself to really unpack some of that stuff. And you talked before about, I don't think we've talked on air about it, but how we have been brought up with our problem-solving skills, or the way we react to our problems, which could be to put our head in the sand and not about them. It could be to overreact to the problem. So it's about identifying what energy you want to put into that problem. But yeah, as I said, for me, I had to connect with something a bit deeper than just the thought.
Well, you've touched on a really good point now, because you're talking about head versus heart and body. Mm-hmm. And one of the problems is a lot of people, they're working with their head, but actually what we need to be doing is working with your feelings. So it all comes down to the feelings. And it was quite a light bulb moment for a client of mine when I said, you're trying to use your head to solve something that was created in your body that is an emotional issue.
Yeah.
And you cannot solve emotional things with your head. So the head and the body are connected. But if it was created in the body with an emotion, you've got to solve it emotionally. Mm-hmm. And I think this is where we, as a society, let ourselves down. We are not working with the body. We are not processing our emotions. I mean, we're coming from literally less than a century ago where we're not supposed to have these emotions. It's not right to cry, right? So we're shutting down our emotions. Yeah. Is it any wonder that we're struggling now? We need to change how we think about things. It is good to have the emotions, even the negative ones. Like, it's okay to have an outburst. Just don't deliver it to someone who doesn't deserve it. Yeah. Don't do it quietly in the safety of your own home.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that we do as humans. We take stuff out on the people around us, and that's a lesson in itself, right? To be able to just put a bit of a stopper on whatever it is you're thinking and go, what am I about to do now that might really impact on me or somebody else, in a positive or negative way? And that's something I'm really aware of. Like, I remember hearing this thing, we can't control what we think, but we can control what we say. So I'm really mindful about being in control of the words that come out of my mouth, because they have an effect on me and they have an effect on other people as well. But yeah, being able to identify your feelings and start to embody those feelings, I think, is probably a really important part of that change within ourselves as well.
But I mean, it's very, very hard. Like, so many people are stressed And it's very hard to stop yourself delivering it to somebody else because you get so wound up. And so what I've started focusing on is trying to release some of those emotions when you're kind of on your own. And you have to do that with your body, which is why exercise and movement is so good, because emotions are energy. If you think of the word emotion, energy in motion, there is no other way to express emotion without movement. Okay, so you have got to move. So I've been teaching people how to express their emotions, how to be like animals. They shake it out. They get like nervous and they shake. And, you know, they have an advantage over us in a way. They don't have the prefrontal cortex, so they can't process it logically. Now, obviously, as humans, we're so advanced, we can think about things, and that's hugely advantageous, but not when it comes to processing emotions. So animals, they go all nervous and they shake it off, and then it's done.
They get on with it.
Whereas humans, we're like, nope, mustn't have that emotion. Let's shut it down. And we start using our logical thoughts to push it away and repress it. It doesn't go anywhere then. It stays in our body. What's that book? The Body Keeps Score. It stays inside you. And then we have outbursts because it's like, pressure cooker. People talk about it. It bursts out of you. So much better to start letting it out when you're, somewhere safe on your own so that it doesn't build up. And what happens is if we do keep keeping it inside, that's when illness happens.
Yeah.
They say, I don't know the percentage, so I'm going to say 90%, but I'm pretty sure it's over 90% of illnesses are because of this stored energy in our body, the negative energy. So it's so important to let it out. Even, some of the big diseases that we have, and they say it's because we've got this energy inside us we're not letting out.
That's so
phenomenal.
And there's lots of research and studies happening to really back up that.
Yeah.
That kind of, I won't call it a belief, but that scientific evidence of, that mind-body connection and how our emotions are so important for our overall well-being. It makes a difference. And, I feel like somebody who's put in a lot of work over the years to get to this place where I wake up every day, I feel good. I go to bed, I feel good. I feel good through the day. That stuff doesn't matter to the point where it should really impact and make us feel so emotional and have that attachment to it.
Yeah. Or maybe if it does happen and affects you, you have got to process that emotion afterwards. That's a way of kind of letting it go. Otherwise, you're keeping it. And then over the years, all these emotions are building up inside you.
Yeah. Yeah. Tough one, hey? It's a really deep conversation because I think we're in a time where people are feeling more pressure and more stress and not able to find really practical ways to help. There's lots of advice and there's lots of stuff that you can do, but I think we have to find that thing that starts to work for us, as an individual.
As you say, it's about, it's one thing to know. It's one thing to know this, but what do we do about it?
Yeah.
Is the point. And I think one of the issues we have is we think it might be quick and easy to solve. And when it doesn't happen quickly or easily, we think, well, that doesn't work and we try something else. That's why I set up the 90-day program, because it's not going to happen overnight and you need to chip away at it slowly and start one step at a time and notice your progress. And that will encourage you to keep going. It won't turn around overnight. Of course it won't.
No. And even if you won lotto, it wouldn't turn around overnight because the problems would still be there.
Well, I tell you, there's enough people out there. I love reading biographies or autobiographies. And, people can have money. It's not about the money. I'm currently reading Matthew Perry, Chandler from Friends, and he had money, but boy, did he have problems. I've just started watching Robbie Williams. And you'd think, there was this young kid, suddenly he was famous. And I've only just started watching it, but it's really heart-wrenching to see what he went through. he really struggled,
Yeah.
but he had money.
Yeah. He's that documentary is really fantastic if you want to get I think an insight into what we perceive from an outside world as what should be the perfect
Great life.
perfect life. Yeah. But it does become a life that is filled with so much torment for him. And I obviously don't want to be giving away too much about the documentary, but when he has a realization, in his life, as we often can do. And I think it's really important to find that moment of realization where you just go, I can't go on like this, or I need to change something. Yeah, but we have to have that awareness, right? I think it comes back to that.
It has to somehow come from ourselves. We can sit here and we can say all these things, but it has to come from you in the end, that, as you said, that realization that, oh, something has to change and I have to do it. Yeah. No one can do it for you. It's quite a realization. It's quite big, because when you realize you have to do it and you're the only one who can do it for yourself, it puts you in control. So that's great.
Yeah.
But it can be, a bit of a wake-up call.
I think that's a really powerful message right there, Vanessa, because, until we can clearly see that we are in control of our moment-to-moment life and destiny, then we are always going to be on that kind of treadmill of hoping that something will change, somebody will change. And that's not how it works.
And that goes back to what we were saying earlier about what are you in control of?
Yeah.
Don't try and control things that you're not in control of. The one thing you're in control of, whether you know it or realize it or like it, the one thing you're in control of is yourself.
Yeah.
And that's way easier said than done. I know that. We don't even realize that we make choices all the time. We think we have no choice. We don't notice the times we have choices. When my husband died and I was left to be in charge of all my children on my own, I remember somebody said, I can't remember what they said to me, but I basically said, but I don't have any choice but to manage or cope or survive or whatever it was, because that's what I thought. But it was interesting because I read a book about someone who completely fell apart after their husband had died. And then I thought, so I am choosing to make this work. I could choose to fall apart, but I decided that no, life's got to go on. I've got to make it work somehow.
And I think in that time of grief, I think people do expect you to fall apart. I think that's because that's what is expected. Like, we're expected to, like I talked before about, suffer. That's what people think life is about, suffering. But no, we shouldn't have to suffer. And no matter what those cards are that are dealt to us, we can still have that choice to change how we think and how we act and how we move forward. Shall we play another song?
What song are you going?
Overnight. It's currently 12, so it's not too bad out there. But there will be a few showers later on. I'm with Vanessa Coultis from Life Mentoring New Zealand. We are unpacking, and I'm going to call it unpacking because it's almost like we've got this box of stuff that we are taking little bits out in order to look at what life can be like when we begin to improve our life regardless of the problems that we're having. And it is a box full of, it's a bit of a Pandora's box. I feel like it's a bit of a Pandora's box because you never know what's coming next. But I think that is part of this process of problem solving in conjunction with living life in a happy, strong, healthy emotional state. Those two can go hand in hand together. We have to find a way to make that happen. So,
you just said a word there which reminded me of something I read, and it said, "I am in process." And I love that because, everyone says it's about the journey, not the destination, and all these words, but it's about understanding that you're working, you're in process. Stop trying to be there. Try and, I'm not saying enjoy the journey, but be kind to yourself and understand that you're working on this step by step.
Yeah.
You know, we're really harsh on ourselves, aren't we? You know, we're like, oh yeah, I should be able to do better, you know. And then we start the whole comparison game. We start looking at someone else. And of course, what we see with someone else is not necessarily the real story. So we want to be what we see in someone else, and then we give ourselves a hard time because why isn't that happening for me? What's wrong with me? And then there we go. We start beating ourselves up. It's so easy. I've done it in 2 steps.
Which a little note I wrote down while that song was on was about how hard we are on ourselves. And that is so, so true. And I look back to kind of my earlier years, in my probably early 30s, I was so hard on myself. I believed I was incredibly unlovable, ugly. I had faced rejection. I felt like a failure in life. And it was all of this stuff these were in my Pandora's box. And then, you know, that point came where I went, I need to change something here. And I am going to work on finding ways to change these beliefs that I have about myself. And I'm using myself as an example because I think some of those things I just talked about are probably very real for other people as well. You know, this journey of self-love and how we value ourselves. And what I really needed to identify was that are these beliefs actually true about me? Am I unlovable? Am I really that ugly? Am I all of this? And once you actually stop and go, that isn't actually true, then you can start to release some of those feelings and thoughts. And you know, it's to identify what a problem is. You know, we've got these problems internally that we feel about ourselves, but we also have these problems in life that are, you know, very real day-to-day problems out there. So for me, I used to make a list of things. What are these things I actually want to change? And how do I then start to...
Did you make a list of what you do want in life or what you did want in life? Because I find that people are focusing so much on what they don't want. How did you go about changing and thinking about what you do want in life?
I thought about what it was who I was, how I felt. I felt X, Y, Z, but I wanted to feel A, B, C. So I had made that decision in my head that I don't want to feel unlovable. I want to feel lovable. I don't want to feel like I don't have love for myself. I want to feel love for myself. So I began to write down what are those things I did want, which is what you talked about before. I want to find a way to feel self-love. I want to find a way to feel like I'm happy. I want to find a way to bring joy into my life.
But a lot of people, when they think about what they do want, they're not at the point that you've just mentioned. They're at the point of more the literal physical things. You've gone to the next step and translated it into how you want to feel. So when I say to people, what do you want? It normally starts with very real, tangible things. Mm-hmm. But then what we do is say, okay, but how will you feel when you have those things? Because it's the feeling we want to get to. Mm-hmm. It's not the actual logistical things. So we want to feel happy. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of the next step. Once you've moved away from what you don't want and you start to move towards what you do want, then it's how will you feel when you have those things? Because it's really the feelings that we want.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And yeah, I think that's what I ended up doing was I started to embody those feelings or imagine what that would feel like, and then started to replace that negative self-talk and thinking with the I am actually ABC, not XYZ. But it is like you say, a slow a slow process. You do have to keep catching yourself when you fall into that moment.
And then not give yourself a hard time because you've fallen into a trap.
Yeah, yeah.
But I like what you said about embodying it. So it's about feeling it. And one of our main issues in life is, firstly, we have to feel safe. We cannot feel love until we feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about, some people don't know what that feeling is, or they can't quite get hold of that feeling. And so we want to know what it feels like to feel safe. That's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. But if you can't get hold of that, then one of the strategies is to think about times in your life when you felt safe, and then really immerse yourself in what that feels like. Because some people don't even, they can't kind of recognize the feeling of safety. They haven't had it for so long, or they think they haven't ever had it. It can be momentary. You can just share, you can think of one little moment in life where perhaps the sun was shining and for 2 seconds, you felt the sun on your face and you felt that warmth. Right? That's the feeling you want, that warm, cozy, supported, comfortable feeling. Mm-hmm. It's like when you were a baby and your mother held you in her arms. And that's that supported, safe feeling. Some people may have hardly ever had that and can't recall it, but I challenge you to just think back to a time in your life, however short it was, a moment in your life when you felt safe. That's what you want to get to, that feeling.
Wow. That's a really big thing I think you just talked about there. I've never ever thought about that feeling of safety, because we all have times when we don't feel safe, and for various reasons. But why is it so important that we feel safe?
Well, when you feel safe, that's when you can start to feel happy. Because when you're in fear, they say the opposite of fear is love.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not love versus hate, it's love versus fear. When you're in fear, you cannot feel loving and happy.
Yeah.
So we need to know what that safe feeling is so we can then start to feel the love and the happiness. But unfortunately, too many of us are in a state of fear.
True.
And then we go back to the whole negative thinking, because we are primed, as animals, humans, we're looking at what's negative, what is going to, hurt us or upset our world. And then we're too busy looking at that. So then we're now really getting ourselves overly involved in not feeling safe because we're too busy looking out for all the things that won't, and to be honest, in today's world, we don't really have fear for our lives for the most part.
Yeah.
We have a lot of stress, but we've decided it's stressful, but we're not in fear of our life. We're in fear of our safety.
Yeah.
So that's why we need to focus on our safety, emotional safety.
Yeah. And keeping our emotional safety intact. Mm. And so you said, going and feeling the sun on you and feeling that warmth permeate down into your kind of body. This morning, as I do every day before I head out the door, I will dance. And this morning, the song I played was Beat of Your Heart, I think. And one of the things that I was thinking about while I was dancing about was the connection to our heart. And the little comment caption I put on my social media was around paying attention to our heart. We don't give it the much thought, and yet it is our life force. It is carrying life around our body, and it's something for me that I constantly think about, expanding the energy of my heart out into the world. And I had to consciously, as part of my, journey to becoming aware of my problems, but not focusing on my problem, was to feel my heart and connect with my heart. And I know that for some people that might seem a bit woo-woo, but we're talking about emotions, and it is that emotional, center. So for me today, that made me feel really safe. It made me feel really good. And calm and peaceful before I did anything else, and walked out of the house. So, yeah, that safe space is really, a really important thing for us to find that within ourselves.
And getting connected to your body, because what happens quite often, and it happens in childhood, is we detach from our emotions. We're told that they're not good. And so we learn how to detach from them. And then getting back into your emotions can be really, really hard. So just as you say, whether it's feeling your heart, movement is really good. Singing and dancing to a song, that's really good. Getting back in touch with the emotions and feelings in your body.
Yeah. So we've got these problems happening around us. What other things can we do to start to cultivate that feeling of, joy and happiness that we can start to build in? Because I think it's all going to happen at a different time for all of us. It's all going to happen in a different way for all of us. But what other things can we do? We've talked about awareness. We've talked about the coping strategies, making that list if you want. What other things can we begin to practice daily to start to connect back into our self so that we're focusing on that moving forward, not being sidelined?
Well, talking of moving forward, we do need to know where we want to get to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we can't get there. So I think having a little bit of a thought of what you do want and where you want to get to, without the expectation of this is a goal and I must get there, and then all you do is put more pressure on yourself and give yourself a hard time because you're not there. Another big thing I find that's missing in people's lives is rewards.
Oh, yeah.
We don't reward ourselves, and rewards can come in very, very small pieces, like just saying well done to yourself for the small things. So it comes connected again to being nice to yourself, Yeah. This generally starts in an ideal world. It starts when you're a child and, you learn to do something very small when you're a child and your parents say, oh, well done. And that's when you have it. That's an external reward, someone else saying well done. And you eventually want to bring that in to be able to say it to yourself. Instead of giving yourself a hard time about what you haven't done, say well done for what you have done. We love, rewards are very motivating. They don't have to be big. They don't have to be big things, and I do this a lot with parenting. The reward doesn't have to be going out and buying them an expensive toy. It can just be spending time with them. It can be taking them to the park. Well, the same for ourselves. Reward yourself as well. It helps you to feel good.
And some people might, I know that some people at my work use this, and I see it all the time, that icks, it gives you the icks, but being able to actually stop and have that moment to go, yeah, well done you. Look what you've achieved today. Is really, it's almost like putting stuff into your emotional bank account,
Yeah, because otherwise all we're doing is telling ourselves off for what we haven't done.
Yeah.
And then we feel negative about ourselves.
Yeah.
It's acknowledging what you have done. We don't do that. We're really bad at it.
Yeah. And because I think it may come back to that feeling of not being deserving of this joy and happiness in our life. We're here to suffer. But I know for me, one of the things that I also did in part of my, life journey of finding this place of happiness was to acknowledge all these great things that I have done in my life. And people go, but I haven't actually done anything. And I've seen this with some of my mentees. I haven't actually done anything or achieved anything. And it's like, well, is that really true? And once you start to actually think about some of these good things that you have done in your life, you do get to see, well, actually life's not all that bad. It hasn't been that bad because I have been able to achieve X, Y, Z, and people should feel proud about that.
Yeah, but it's interesting how people can discount what they've done or who they are. They're not acknowledging or appreciating their own positives.
Yeah,
they're just so used to it. Well, that's just who I am, and they don't thank themselves. They don't take thanks from other people.
Yeah, And I'm going to reinforce that it is really important to give yourself the virtual high five because, you know, it's a tough world out there. Lots of stuff happening, lots of challenges, lots of problems. And the more we can do to build our own sense of self and ability to cope and feel good, it not only helps us, but it rubs off on others as well, which is really important.
But it's interesting that we're quite often waiting for someone else to say well done to us.
Yeah.
And we don't realise we can actually say it to ourselves. Yeah. And that comes from when you were a child and your parents said well done.
Yeah.
And that's great. If they said that, that's great. If they said that to you, that's great. But then at some point you have to move away from that and start doing it for yourself. Otherwise, we spend our whole life wanting everyone else to say, well done, well done. You know, people who want to go out and be famous or they're posting on social media because they will still need someone else to say, well done. Well, guys, you can do it for yourself.
Yeah.
Say well done to yourself. Yeah. Don't wait for everybody else to do it for you.
Yeah. Have your celebration. Give yourself a break.
Well, yeah, really. I mean, it's just occurred to me, the thought's gone through my head that you're waiting for someone else to say, well done, but they might not, because to them, what you've done, that might not be a big thing. So say you're someone who struggles to get up in the morning, you're depressed, and you get up. No one else is probably going to say, well done to you for that, because they just think getting up, they don't even realize it's hard. So you need to say it to yourself. If you've done something hard, say well done to yourself. Don't expect someone else to say it. They don't understand that it's hard. They don't realize how much effort you put into achieving it, because for them, it's not hard.
Yeah.
So you're going to spend a long time waiting for other people to give you that reward, acknowledgement, validation. It's much easier to do it for yourself.
Yeah. So Vanessa, you wanted to talk about toothache. Do you need a dentist?
Well, I have a little story. This wasn't mine. I stole this from someone else and I forget who. But what is interesting is, so imagine, and this is about a problem, okay? Toothache is a problem. And so what happens is, perhaps you're going along in life and everything's fine, and then you start to get a bit of a toothache. And then it gets worse and worse. And we try and put up with it and we try and ignore it. And then we reach a point and we're like, no, going to have to do something about it. So you go off to the dentist, and basically the dentist tells you what they can do to fix it for you. You're like, great, you're going to solve my problem. And so then your day of the appointment comes and you go and you have your treatment, and all right, it's painful, it's not fun, but you get through it. And afterwards you're like, great, I should be happy now because I fixed my toothache. And you are for a moment, but then everything goes back to normal.
The numbing thing wears off, does it?
Well, no, the point actually is that all that's happened is you're back to square one of where you were before the toothache. So you feel that you should be happier. Notice the word should be happier now because you have fixed your problem. All right. But no, you haven't fixed the problem. You have just gone back to where you were before you had the problem. And were you happy before you had the problem? Probably not. So you feel that by solving the problem, you've moved forwards in life. And that's perhaps the whole point of today, is fixing your problems does not move you forward. It's just one less problem to deal with.
So the dentist has fixed the toothache, which we need to get rid of the toothache. Otherwise, it's going to get worse and worse and worse and really problematic. But in fixing the toothache, there's potential for another toothache to happen or the same toothache to come back. Because we've still got, he's fixed something on a it's not a quick fix. Like fixing a toothache isn't a quick fix because it's kind of a long-term thing. But it's hard to, like you say, move beyond that toothache. Are you still holding on to the toothache feeling, do you think?
Well, it's a fundamental problem that you have fixed, but inside you feel that you should now be happy that you've moved forward in life. Mm-hmm. And then after the initial relief, you wonder why you don't feel happy that you move forward. And the point is, you haven't moved forward. You've just fixed one problem, and you are now back to where you started before you had the toothache.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a moving forward, it's just fixing a problem.
Okay. So we either fix the problem and stay where we are, or we fix the problem and then start to move away into that next stage of life and happiness. How do we, I know we're talking about this today, and it's I think it's a really sometimes difficult thing to articulate, but now how do we...
So we're still back to how do we move forwards in life?
Yeah.
And it is not fixing the problem, because you're still just back to square one after you fix the problem. You're back to where you were before it started.
So it's a loop.
Yeah.
It's a loop.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's the loop.
Yeah.
So don't focus on fixing your toothache. By all means, some of these problems, yeah, we want to get them fixed, but don't expect that to have moved you forward in life and then to be happier.
And what does it mean to move forward in life? And just because I think that's different for different people. For me, moving forward in life is knowing that every day I get an opportunity to be on the planet and continue to do things that make me happy and bring me joy and feel satisfied. So what would moving forward...
So some of those things that bring us joy, surprisingly, are, as humans, as social animals, is contribution, is giving to others. And it's really hard when you're in the depths of stress and you feel that you're drowning to give to others. And so I thought, well, you don't have to make that a really big thing. Make it conscious, and just even smiling at somebody passes on a little bit of joy to that other person. And because as humans, giving out to others, you know, like a lot of people today are talking about what's my purpose? And what that's actually about is about giving to something outside of yourself. That's what your purpose is. But some people, when you're so busy like drowning in trying to survive every day, it's the last thing you can think about is giving to others. But if you could maybe, again, have a little cheat list, a go-to where you just think, look, every day I'm just going to smile at somebody else. It's amazing. Give it a go. You just feel so much better. And that it might feel hard, but once you get the hang of it, just these small things can just light up other people's day, and that makes you feel better.
Yeah. But then you always got that moment of like, why is that random person smiling at me? And that's a problem within itself, because we're not used to having that complimentary attention on us. We're uncomfortable with that. But if someone smiles at you, they're probably doing it genuinely from their heart, because they want to radiate some kind of joy and love into the world. Or maybe they've just been to the dentist and had their toothache fixed and they're feeling pretty good. Now, also, let's talk about big rocks.
Yeah, there was a question the other day on social media, and it was about how do you, say, find time for yourself. And I always liken it to your bank balance. I can remember years ago, and I think it was my first job, and I got a pay rise. And I was on pretty little money as it was, and a pay rise was very much needed. But what I decided was I would use that pay rise and I'd put it straight into a savings account. Because if you say, right, whatever money's left at the end of the pay period, be it a month, a fortnight, that can be my savings. There'll be none left.
Yeah.
So the way to do it is to put it aside first. So if you want some time for yourself, and I'm thinking particularly of busy parents, you need to put that time in, like allocate that time to you first. Don't think when I get a moment, I will, because you'll never get a moment. Life does not work like that. So even if you have to go and shut yourself in the toilet to get 2 minutes to breathe, and if your life was anything like mine, even going to the toilet did not mean that you had time to yourself, but take the gist of it, 2 minutes to yourself, but you have to put that in first. It won't happen. It's like exercise. When I've got time, I'll exercise. When I've got time. Life is not going to work like that. So put it in first. If it's important, then block out your time, however short it is, for that and put it in. Otherwise, you won't get it.
Pay yourself first. And I think, talking about exercise, it's, I know for me, sometimes I've come home from work and I'm like, I don't have the time or the energy to do anything else, right? But then it's like, actually, I am so important. My well-being is so important. I am so important as a human, as a woman, as, the presenter of the Joy Temple, whatever it is. I am so important that actually I need to make this time for myself. It's a priority.
Well, I think you've hit on a point there saying I am so important, because there is that trap when you have no energy and you know you must exercise or you should cook a healthy meal, but you don't have the energy for it. What do? And I think one of the problems is people make it too big and too hard. So yes, you must exercise. Does that mean going to the gym for an hour? Because if so, whoa, I do not have that energy.
Yeah.
How about it's just 2 minutes of movement? I always say like set yourself up to win. So I got I have a gorgeous dog, a border collie. And when she was a puppy about 6 years ago, I read what we're supposed to do, how we're supposed to, look after the puppy. And now border collies chew a lot. And the best thing I read was set her up to win. And so I tell you what, you've never seen my house so clean and so tidy. We made sure there was nothing she could chew. That way, she was always a really good dog because she hadn't chewed anything in the day. It meant we had quite an empty house. It also meant we had a tidy house. Yeah. But I set her up to win rather than leave things there and then tell her off every time she chewed something.
Like it's her.
There was nothing there to chew. Therefore, she was always such a good dog. So we don't set ourselves up to win, right? Make it easy for yourself. And when you've achieved it, then make it harder. Yeah. So exercise. Okay, 2 minutes of moving, right? Once you can do that, then maybe make it a little bit harder. Don't go straight for that, I want to be able to run a marathon or I need to go to the gym for an hour, because that you've just made it so hard. You're tired, you're stressed. It's the last thing you want to do.
And I think that that's maybe a conversation for another time around, these excuses that we make for why we aren't doing things in our life to progress us and move forward. And, my day, like 2 hours a day commuting, 7 hours in the office, coming home, cooking dinner, doing other things. But it's like, you know what? I am just going to stop right now and I'm going to give myself 15 minutes of beautiful yoga. I do this thing called the 5 Tibetans every night, and it's just 5 yoga movements, and it's building strength. It makes me feel relaxed. It feels good, along with my other kind of walking that I might do throughout the day. But I'm not tied to an exercise routine. And there's part of me that goes, I feel a bit guilty about that. But then the other part of me goes, you know what, like you say, just do what you can do now, but do it because you're important. You are valuable, you are worthy, you deserve to be in the best shape to be able to do all the other things that you want to do in life and to be able to help the other people around you as well.
I have another little tip. And it's about doing things guilt-free. I learned this one from mums, really, who they finally get a break from their children for however long it is. And to be honest, they waste it because they spend the whole time feeling guilty that they should be with their child. I say this to my daughter when she's, I should study, but I think I'm going to watch a program instead. And I say, okay, if you're going to watch a program, make sure you've decided you're going to do it and do it guilt-free. Otherwise, the whole time you're watching the program, you're going to feel you should be studying. So when you're giving yourself that time off, make it guilt-free. Make it a conscious decision that you are allowed it, you're important enough, and you're going to put yourself first. So whether your break is 2 minutes, 5 minutes, half an hour, whether it's a holiday, do it guilt-free, because otherwise you've got that internal resistance, that fighting in yourself. Yes, I'm having a break. But I shouldn't be. Okay. And that's just ruining your whole break.
Yeah. And I think that's one of those things that comes back to, that kindness that we need to give to ourselves as well in order to feel okay, because we aren't kind to ourselves. So Vanessa, we are going to start wrapping up for today. We were we had a list of things that we're going through, and one of the things we wanted to touch on was the purpose of behaviour.
Well, what I mean by that, Jan, is everything we do, every behaviour actually has a purpose behind it. And if we can work out what the behaviour was trying to achieve, it puts us in a better position because we could then find a different way to achieve it. So let's take a simple thing. Let's take a child who misbehaves, right? They do something naughty. We know they're not trying to be naughty. What is it they were trying to do? Possibly they wanted to get attention. So once we know the purpose, we can find a different strategy to give them attention. So let's take adult behavior. Let's go extreme and let's talk about, say, addictions. So say you're addicted to alcohol. There's a purpose behind that. So you might think, well, I just need to stop drinking and that's going to solve everything. Well, actually, I don't think it necessarily will, because unless you come up with another behavior that's going to have the same solution, it's not going to work. So I'll give you a concrete example. Why are we drinking alcohol? Maybe it's because we want to mask the pain. We want to just step out of life for a little bit. And alcohol does that. Well, if I then stop drinking, what's going to happen? How else will I step out of life? Well, I'm going to have to start another addiction, aren't I? Yeah. So much better to think, right, well, if that's the purpose, to mask the pain, what other ways can I stop this pain? Then I won't need to try and give up drinking. I just won't need drinking. I just won't need the drinking anymore. So it's always looking at why are we doing that behavior? Yeah. When we have an argument with someone, for example, it might be because we want to be heard. Why do we want to be heard? Well, because we want to be acknowledged. We want to be significant and important. We want to feel that person cares about us.
We matter.
Yeah, that we matter. One of our core needs. Well, we won't need to argue if we find a different way to feel special to that person.
Yeah. And those things require you to really dig deep, really question yourself. And I think that's a fundamental part of this transformational journey, is to question, why am I doing this? What purpose is it serving me? What can I do differently?
Well, of course, people don't like change. We inherently don't like change. We need some things to stay the same in life. That gives us stability. And we need some things to change. But we all vary as to how much we like routine and how much we like change. But going back to what you were saying, we have to dig deep and be really honest with ourselves. What was I trying to achieve with that behavior? Only then can we start to say, okay, well, how else could I achieve that? And come up with a different strategy.
So you have a 90-day course, Vanessa. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so this came about. So I coach people, and I've always coached them one-on-one. And actually what I've done now is I'm putting out a 90-day program, because it does take a while to get these changes. And the 90-day program has 90 videos. And the premise behind it is you just need to focus on yourself for a few minutes a day.
A few minutes. I love that.
Just a few minutes. Okay. It's for people who are overwhelmed and who are struggling and overthinking. And the aim is not to overwhelm you anymore.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want a 90-day course that means you've got to do a whole lot of work for 90 days, because you're going to feel more overwhelmed. So the aim is just to start the day with a positive thought every day. And then there's tasks in it that are more in depth. But if you're feeling overwhelmed, well, you don't do one of those. You just do the easy one, which might just be a thought-provoking comment that starts your day positively.
And build up.
And build it up from there and get you into a new habit of starting your day positively, and just changes your thinking bit by bit. But it takes time. So it's a 90-day program, and it's just a few minutes a day, for you to focus on you, because you are important. You are important. You must make yourself important to you. You matter. Once you are feeling better, you can be there for other people, for your children, for friends, but you need to focus on you at least for a few minutes a day.
Beautiful. I love that. That's a great way to wrap up our show today. I'll put the links to Vanessa's website up on my own page, The Joy Temple. Thank you for coming in today. It's been really lovely talking to you about this topic. We've unpacked Pandora's box, and hopefully we're putting things back in the box in a little bit more of a, manageable order. This is The Joy Temple. I am going to wrap up now. It's been lovely to have you listening in with us today. We're coming up to 11 o'clock. I'm going to close out the show today with I Feel the Earth Move Under My Feet. I'll see you next week on The Joy Temple.